What's up, guys? Straight from the chest. Welcome. My name is Justin Groth, and I'm your host on this personal development podcast. Guys, if you are new to the channel, this podcast is geared towards igniting the dormant passion that lays within you, and it's my honor to try to extract what it is that your abilities are. It's how I choose to operate right now in my life. I just feel called to do that. I feel called to instruct people in the best way that I can. And so I use this platform to do so. And if you can resonate from the things that I say, it's just a win-win for me. And hopefully I can do that for you. So guys, again, if you're new, welcome. If you're old and you've been listening forever, then you already know that spiel. And I thank you for staying with me. It does mean a lot to me. Normally we do a segment called We're Not Friends. And to be quite honest, I haven't been really going anywhere, and therefore many things haven't had the ability to rattle me. So I really don't have any We're Not Friends for you right now, but I promise you, I'm sure in the future there will be. But guys, really what I wanted to talk about and share with you today is something that something that us in the fitness industry or people that are exercising or lifting weights, they go through. And it's something that I think is very, very, very applicatory in our lives as well, and the certain process. And I want to touch on that for a second. Guys, when we start lifting weights, and this is just something that I've had the honor of coaching and teaching and training people throughout the last probably 9 or 10 years of my life. And not only bodybuilders, but sport-specific athletes and just people in general trying to build strength and overall health, but also muscle hypertrophy at the time, which hypertrophy means the growth of muscle. So that's been my centralization, my focus, and really just it centers around people. And I've noticed not only with myself, I don't want to bring myself into the picture because I don't really want to talk about myself here, but this is applicatory for everybody. And the people that are going to resonate the most with this is the ones that are actually avidly working out. They're avidly in the gym. Well, they're not now, but they're still following suit to an exercise protocol or program. And they're just continuing with their journey. Now, guys and girls, you understand that in the beginning, it's very, very easy to put on muscle mass. In fact, I put on a survey, or not a survey, I put on a post yesterday for Instagram, and I asked people how much muscle do they think that a natural meaning no drugs, right? No steroids, no growth hormone, no nothing like that, can expect to gain in their lifetime. And I obviously understand or know the number behind this based on this number is based on extensive research by top tier professionals that have exhausted this avenue for years and years and years. This is not something that, is bro science made up and regurgitated from person to person. This is actual, not just theory, but this is actually pragmatic evidence that's been showcased. So I know I have an advantage on this. I know the number, and I was expecting some offbeat numbers. And to my astonishment, I didn't get offbeat numbers. I actually got some numbers that were, right around exactly what my numbers are. And again, this is just my numbers are from actual research based, clinical studies that have been done on people. And so I was surprised to know this. Hear from the people on this topic. And it is something that when we go into the gym we have a mindset of, I'm going to be bigger and I'm going to be better. Most of the time, if you're searching for bodybuilding, you're trying to bodybuild in your life, you're probably predicating your look based off of an athlete that you look up to in the magazines or whatever. And what they don't tell you is those athletes, they're doing a lot of steroids. They're doing a lot of pharmaceuticals, things that you have no idea of when you're starting out. So you have this kind of blind lens you're looking through, or jaded lens, I should call it, And it's giving you the idea that you may be able to get to this guy's level if you do his program, if you eat what he eats, and they leave out the drugs, right? So you're going in this with good intentions. You start training, you start being, consistent with your efforts, not only with your nutrition, but with your consistent with your program, and you're applying intensity. You're going to every workout with intent in mind to build as much muscle as you can, or break down as much tissue as you can, so you can rebuild and start the recovery process, and that's what builds muscle, right? Well, in the first 1 to 2 years, you put on muscle like crazy. It seems like every time you're going up to, you're meeting a group of friends, or you're going to see family you haven't seen in a couple months, it's like every time they're telling you, it seems like they're saying, oh my gosh, you stop growing, you're getting too big, or gosh, you got bigger than the last time I saw you. And you start to, really relish in that type of an accolade. And you start to, almost make it a part of your identity. Like, you can keep doing this. Because if you hear something 7, 8 times, you're probably going to ascertain that this can be, a pretty extensive process, that you could hear this for the next, 10, 20 years. And sadly, it doesn't work that way. And what happens is you end up coming to a halt with we call it plateaus, but there's many plateaus that you'll go through. And, in the first 2 years, you're gaining muscle like crazy, provided you're doing everything perfect. When I say perfect, I mean managing your stress as best you can in this jaded world. You're eating correctly, you're eating whole foods, you're maybe supplementing lightly here and there with good nutritious supplements like fish oils and, zinc and vitamin D3, etc. You're drinking lots of water, you're getting adequate rest, even more than adequate rest, 7, 8 plus hours a night of restful REM sleep. And you're doing these things consistently. You have continuity across the board with these elements. And you're making gains like crazy in year 3, in year 4, in year 5 hits. And these gains start to very, very much dissipate or slow down. Even if you're doing the same thing that you were doing 2 years ago, that you got all these other gains from. And let's say you're switching your programs up, you're doing different weight training, you're shocking the body, quote unquote, which doesn't exist. It's just you're providing a novel stimulus each time you're going in to train, or for a period of time, like 3, 4 weeks or whatever. You're doing that part. You're doing your part there, right? But what happens is, even with all of that fancy programming, and you're getting into the advanced level of your body, and the advanced level of your training, and etc., things are going to stop, and they're not going to proceed. You're not going to get any further. And that is the time when people just, one of two things happens. They start to train smarter, or they just maintain, because they realize that, I'm just going to continue to ride this thing out, and, it's a part of my life. This is what I've made it. I developed a habit from the last 7, 8, 6, 7 years of doing this. It's not something that I can just fall back out of. It's a part of your identity. Now it's something that you look forward to, etc., etc. But instead of training harder and pushing the bar more, because that's not going to work, because you have this governor in your body that's going to limit your process of building muscle from a genetic standpoint. This is not a somatotype situation. This is from a genetic standpoint. You've got this thing called myostatin, and that's going to put the governor on muscle growth for the future. The only way to get past that is to do drugs. Okay, but most of you, hopefully, you're not on that bandwagon. And you're going about this in the most pragmatic sense you can. What people will end up doing, they'll either train smarter and just realize that they're going to have to they're just maintaining. It doesn't matter what program they go on. They're just going to train smarter so they can psychologically get through and look forward to their workout still. Or They're going to train harder thinking that that's the avenue. They're going to train more intensely thinking that that's what they have to do. That's the magic medicine. That's the way to bust through this plateau. Those people are just relishing in what they once knew when they were 1 to 2 years in, thinking they could just bulldoze through their plateaus. That doesn't work. It doesn't work that way when you're 7 years in and you've been consistent doing everything right, almost near perfect. Taking no time off, extensive times off where you're not working out for 4 or 5 months at a time. No, this is like you're straight through. You're being darn near perfect, right? You can't just bulldoze through that plateau. You've gained all the muscle you can gain. You're not going to get further. Now, that's a very hard pill to swallow for most bodybuilders or people that are searching to get their best physique. But what you use in the beginning is not going to work for you when you're 7 years in. You're going to have to approach this thing a little bit differently, or else you're going to drive yourself in the ground. And when I say drive yourself in the ground, I mean figuratively and physiologically. If you think that you're going to kind of mull through this and do it your way and not work with your body's systemic processes, you're going to derail yourself. You're going to actually fall back further. So you have to get smarter with your training. And a lot of times that means breaking old habits, which are your intent to work harder. Your work ethic that's just crazy through. You can work around anybody. You can, and I'm not talking about weightlifting. You can. When I'm not talking about, I'm sorry, let me roll back. I'm not talking about how much weight you can lift. I'm talking about how much you can do in a session and how quick you are to limit your rest periods and how just much of a goal and gumption you have during your training. I'm not referring to you doing that to make you bust through this plateau. You got to realize that you're done and you need to accept that. And you need to keep going, but you need to keep going. And the way you keep going is you readjust your framework. And that, again, that's something that's hard for people to do. You can't get what you got doing what you got before. It doesn't work like that unless you're on steroids. It doesn't work like that unless you have some supernatural thing that you're on or taking or that makes you not like the rest. So, readjusting, not only for your physiological processes to be optimal, like your adrenal output, your hormonal output, your testosterone, all, affecting those, helping those things to be effective as they can be and not suppressing them with the relentless work yourself into the ground, work more, work harder. That's not going to work for you right now. You need to redirect. And the way to do that is to get smarter with your training. And a lot of times that means to fall back from such a high level work ethic. You don't need to keep proving anything. Now, I'm not saying go in the gym and just, be regular and just kind of, meander around and do some machines and whatnot here and there and don't ever go to failure with your reps. I'm not saying that. I'm saying be more strategic and more pragmatic with your training. What you didn't have to be, you didn't have to be that way when you first started. And a lot of times, if not in all avenues, this applies to life and the way God is going to direct us. He's not going to direct us the same 7 years after one of our purposes into the next purpose. He's going to direct you different. And it's up to you to listen to his direction and not adhere off of your old habitual processes and ways, because those don't apply anymore. You're leveling up, you're evolving, and it takes you listening to the new directive or the new narrative. And if you don't, you can wind up just rolling in circles, and realizing that your efforts, your ambition, your goal, your gumption, your drive, your perseverance, it doesn't really mean all that much right now. What means the most is you paying attention and being quiet and listening to the narrative, to the new narrative that is over your life. If you decide to go back and retrovert to the things that you once knew to get you where you wanted to go, they're not going to apply. The key's not going to fit the ignition. There's a new key. Same ignition, but there's a new key. You need to fit that key into that ignition now. And the only way to do that is for you to listen and restructure what you once were, because it doesn't apply anymore. You're shedding a new skin. You're going into a new direction. And the way to lose sight of that, the way to get more confused and more misdirected is to keep applying old habits to new formations. You're becoming a new formation now. You're evolving. What you once had doesn't fit anymore. And most of us get so wound up with trying to fit a square peg in a round hole because we once did it before. Barely, but we did it. And it's not working anymore. And we're wondering why not? Because you need to evolve. And the way that you're evolving isn't the way that you would choose to evolve. God's trying to evolve you. He's trying to direct you. He's trying to give you a new narrative, but you're not listening. And you're still trying to figure this thing out like you're a third grade adolescent. Trying to put the peg in a hole that doesn't fit. And it's just going to cause confusion, disruption, dysfunction. It's going to cause frustration. And all the while, you're just going to fall back further. So just like we have to get smarter with our training, when we've already gained the amount of muscle we're going to gain, that season's over. Now we come into the new directive of keeping that, maintaining that, and actually just building more quality of life. We have to change our directive. We have to get smarter with our programming. What we didn't have to do when we first started, because everything we did worked. Everything. We didn't even have to be that strict, but we didn't have to, and we still would have put on muscle mass like crazy. But if we're going to be called to be our best, if we're going to be called to be the great entrepreneur, influencer, leader that we are called to be, we have to listen to the new narrative. We have to pay attention and give enlightenment to the new direction. Or else we'll fall short every single time trying to figure this out on our own. At this point, it's our own ambition that can actually derail us. We got to just sit and we got to listen and we got to apply what's new. Because the new is going to lead us into the different trajectory that we need to be in to become the best influence, the best leader, the best husband, the best wife, the best entrepreneur, the best business owner that we are called to be. We got to shed the old skin. We got to get higher programming to fit the new narrative in our life. And the beautiful thing is, it's up to you. It's up to you if you'd like to listen. It's up to you if you'd like to apply. But just keep this in mind. What once worked is not always going to work for your future. God has callings over our life, and He has a different narrative for each purpose in our life, for each season in our life. The way He calls us 4 or 5 years ago isn't going to be the same way or the same route He uses to call us currently. And we have to be open and not so closed-minded or so myopic to think that He's going to use the same format. He's got something different. He's got something different because He's using you for something different. So you got to understand that the program has to match the formula for the future. You can't use the same program for a new formula. Be understanding of that, guys, when it applies to your life. This isn't just for fitness. This isn't just for building a body. This is applicatory in each one of our journeys. Done.